Hello. I'm using my computer up here because I'm going to talk about a few things today. One is the problem that we're working on at Outernet, which I touched on briefly during the panel yesterday. The second is a little bit about how Outernet works, and in that, talking about what is it that we actually broadcast as part of Outernet, and how does that system of selecting the material that we broadcast play out? Because that's a question we get a lot, and that's what I work on. And then finally actually demoing the Lighthouse that's plugged in that any one of you can connect to right now. It's the Wi-Fi signal is Outernet, or Outernet with it has a little IP address in parentheses, and so if you connect to it and open a browser, go to that IP address, you can see exactly what the Outernet experience looks like. Or you can just wait and I'll show it to you on the screen. So I want to start out by talking about the problem that we're working on at Outernet, which is what was just mentioned in my introduction about 4.3 billion people not having access to the internet. And I touched a little bit on this yesterday, but I'm going to show a quick video that we made in Detroit, where I lived for 4 years. And we struggle at Outernet sometimes to convey the enormity of this problem to particularly with our Indiegogo campaign. We did an Indiegogo campaign that we launched last November. We reached our goal within 5 days, which was amazing, and then are still in demand, so you can still go and back the campaign. And Indiegogo is a disconnect from our audience. Our audience is not on the internet, but Indiegogo is an internet platform. And so we had to find a way to really grab people emotionally with this problem of lack of connectivity and show the value that Outernet adds. And sometimes talking about the value of data in a one-way broadcast is a little bit like trying to tell people who have grown up driving in limousines the value of giving someone a bicycle. It's a huge delta to go from having absolutely no information access to having free information access. So we were going to make a video. That's what you do, right? You make a video. And so we were trying to think about what this video would be, and in Detroit passed by this huge pile of books that had been left outside and were just completely ruined. And in Detroit, we incinerate our garbage. And so I thought about that and the fact that it was a book burning, essentially, that was going to take place once these books got picked up. And that's such powerful imagery that in reality, what's happening to these 4.3 billion people is that this information is not available to them. It's essentially like a digital book burning, or when censorship takes place, when people are not allowed to access the information that they want to. It's just another form of holding back information. So we picked up those books and took them to an abandoned factory in Detroit. So I want to show you the video that we made.
In the course of your lifetime, how much information have you consumed? From educational material to entertainment, music, art, news. What if all of that was just gone? What if the internet did not exist? Can we even comprehend our lives today without this wealth of information? In 2012, just 35.5% of people on Earth had access to the internet. That means nearly 2/3 of humanity could not enter this enormous library. Let's think of it another way. Take the entire population of North America, South America, Europe, and Oceania, 4 continents, and let's throw in Indonesia, Japan, and both Koreas. Now, double it. That many people in the dark, spread out across the world. Now imagine if tomorrow, the lights came on. What if there were a way to broadcast the most valuable information from the web to the entire world from space for free? Any language, any format, available everywhere. What would people choose? What would people read about if their governments no longer deprive them of their right to free information? How many dark patches of our history could have been avoided if we had just known more? How many can we avoid in the future? What would that world look like? What new inventions could be created or diseases cured? What could our species accomplish? There are inflection points in our history that change humanity's course forever. Universal information access is one such event. What if there were a library in every village? A a library in every home, a library in every pocket. Can you even imagine that world? You no longer need to just imagine. Outernet.
So, thank you. So these two guys from Plymouth, Michigan made that video, and we thought it turned out pretty well. It made it onto Upworthy and got a bit of coverage. So that whole idea, and this is what really attracted me to Outernet when I first heard about the project and came on board and now run content, is imagine if every library or every village had a library. And I'm going to go through this quickly, which I touched upon yesterday, is that we first have to change the notion of the library from this to this. A small device that, just like a library, is completely free to go in and take what you want whenever you want. So there's no fee at all to receive Outernet information. So here it is again, and it's actually on sale in the ICD4D shop here. But the other advent of Outernet is that I think it would be a little bit arrogant on our part to say that we can solve this enormous problem, which we just conveyed with that very flashy video, by having people in these very disconnected regions come to our online store and buy Lighthouse from us. It's a little bit of a catch-22. So everything that we do at Outernet is completely open source. The plans, the hardware, the software, everything is just in the commons, openly licensed, so much so that you don't even have to buy a Lighthouse in order to receive Outernet. We release plans on how you can build your own. This is our do-it-yourself kit with Raspberry Pi, and there's a little tuner module, which you can see is just about the same size as a Raspberry Pi, and that's all you need to plug that into a dish and to receive Outernet. So when we were designing Outernet, we didn't come to the problem and say, okay, it's like really cool right now to put satellites in orbit to give people free information access. That's where we arrived after thinking about what the actual problems are on the ground and what is the cheapest way on a cost per bit method to get information to people. If that happened to be putting radio towers on the backs of ships and sailing them through international waters, then we would do that, but that's way more expensive. So using existing satellites was the cheapest way to solve these problems with the existing data infrastructure. There's a lot of cell phones in the market, there's a lot of good data coverage, but a lot of it requires an account, and that's just not very practical in a lot of these development scenarios. The coverage, even if it does exist, is very slow, it's very patchy, power is not always available, the download speeds are horrible. You go outside of a city, I went to a conference in Kampala, Uganda, and hardly anybody had data. Everybody had cell phones, but they were using them mostly just to call and communicate. And so it's expensive, and that's the biggest one. And so when we created Outernet, we wanted to solve all of these problems, the biggest one being that it's completely free. So here's where I ask you again to imagine if every human can contribute to the global marketplace of ideas. And so this is where I come to this story. Syed, our founder and CEO, wanted to, CNN had invited him to write an article for them, and we were sitting around in the office kind of debating what he should write about. And his father came from Bangladesh and moved to the United States and was actually super successful as an immigrant. And so we both decided that people don't really want to hear super success stories like that. They want something more, something that they can relate to. I guess people don't like having their stereotypes broken. So we were talking about his daughter, and he named his daughter Faraday. And the reason he named his daughter Faraday ended up being the story that he told for CNN. Michael Faraday, many of you, or some of you may know, was one of the greatest scientists of our time. He led some major discoveries in electromagnetism, was born at the end of the 18th century. But he grew up in a poor household. His father was an apprentice for a blacksmith, and he did not have any formal education. The only way he was able to make his discoveries was because he apprenticed for a bookbinder for 7 years. Libraries were not a common thing like they are today, and so he was able to have rare access to the most valuable manuscripts of his time and teach himself science and teach himself the leading ideas and go on to make these discoveries. And so you wonder if only a third of humanity has access to this extremely valuable information, our largest library ever created. How many other Faradays are there out there waiting to just have the opportunity to nourish their minds? So here's a village in India that I hiked to, and I'm actually going to talk about how Outernet works really quickly. So Outernet is a free data signal broadcast from satellites in orbit. We are currently live on 6 different satellites, broadcasting continuously, and it's not a new type of technology in the sense that it needs new, very special tech in order to receive it. It, in fact, uses the same sort of TV signal that is the free-to-receive satellite TV signal that over 400 million homes around the world currently receive and are actually pointing satellite dishes right now at the satellites that we're broadcasting data on. So the satellite comes, the information comes down, that's our little Lighthouse logo, and Lighthouse receives that information and stores it, and I'm going to try and go through this quickly because I can just show it to you as a demo. It stores that information, you get to decide what of that broadcast you want to keep. So it gives you a list of what's received, and you get to move what you want over to storage, and you can discard the rest. Any Wi-Fi enabled device is able then to connect to that Lighthouse via Wi-Fi, via LAN, and view it in any browser. What we're working on right now is the feedback loop, the ability for us to not just decide what people should read and watch and listen to around the world, but for them to actually ask for it and to send an SMS, a WhatsApp message, a tweet, a Facebook message, especially for free in markets where Internet.org has given free data access for Facebook Messenger, and send a message and say, I want math material in Hindi for 3rd grade. And that can come back to us, back to our community of volunteers in a Wikipedia-like fashion, who then go out and find that material and send it back down. And so that feedback loop, I think, is one of the most important aspects of Outernet. Now, pointing the dish is something that can cause a little bit of frustration. It's an exercise in patience. But it's one of those things that has actually already been solved. It hasn't been solved here because our market for satellite TV has been pretty much cornered by Dish and DirecTV. But in most of the rest of the world, these satellite dishes are pretty ubiquitous. And if you've traveled abroad, you've probably seen lots of them on top of homes, even in slums in India. I saw they're everywhere. And the technicians to point these things are freely available. So we're not, again, creating anything new here. We're piggybacking off of existing systems to receive free TV. But this is Sam from Invinio, and when I got here, he said, Thane, I've been so frustrated. I've been trying to point this dish. So we took it out back. This is a photo right out back here. And we use these shipping pallets, which I do not recommend. You really want to secure these dishes to a wall. But we were able to get it pointed in less than 15 minutes and get a signal lock. So it can be done. It's one area of improvement that we have to do better is communicating exactly how to do that. But that's actually not a solution for the field. It's a solution for people in the United States who want to test it before it goes out into the field. Neely took one out into the field and was able to find a technician and get it pointed fairly easily, from what I understand. So it's a little bit of a leap of faith that it actually is fairly easy to accomplish in the field. So I actually want to try and skip through that and talk about the content that we broadcast, because this is a question I get a lot. All right, Thane, it's a one-way broadcast. Who decides? Are you the gatekeeper? And technically, right now the answer is yes, but that is not at all where we want to be. And the reason that we took the Lighthouse as it's made right now and took the old case off and put a clear one on is because we love transparency. So if you were to break down our broadcast, you could break it down into 3 main categories. The first one is the core archive. And this is information that we are selecting as an editorial body that has been asked for from the field. The Rachel repository that World Possible has created is part of that. Khan Academy is part of that. Wikipedia is part of that. Over 30,000 ebooks from Project Gutenberg is part of that. And everything that happens in the core archive, we document publicly, and it's open for critique. So if people don't want 30,000 ebooks, they can write to us and tell us, and we can edit this. The second is this publicly edited, publicly curated aspect of Outernet, where people are deciding and voting and asking for and requesting content from the field and as part of our volunteer network in places that do have internet. And finally, that's our largest section of the archive, by the way. The publicly edited area is where we see the most of our bandwidth being consumed. And then there's sponsored content. We see ourselves as being sort of the digital FedEx, right? We have the ability to send digital files to places that up until now it's been impossible to send them to. So you pay a fee for sending a file, and it goes to everyone. You know, imagine trying to package up 30,000 books and send them to a village. That would cost, I don't even know how much that would cost. But I think we can all agree it would cost a lot. So the thing, I want to talk briefly about sponsored content. So when you pay on a per megabyte basis to send content using Outernet, it goes along with everything else, and it goes over our entire signal, and it reaches every single Outernet receiver in the field. So it doesn't matter whether you're sending data to 5 lighthouses or to 5 million, the cost is the same, which is a pretty remarkable advent in terms of data delivery. The second is that it's a fee to send, but it's completely free to receive. The same way with FedEx. You pay to send it, but the recipient doesn't pay anything to receive that package. So you pay, and the coloring here isn't very good, but you upload it in sort of like a Dropbox fashion. Just put it into a folder, your content. It goes along with all of our other content, and it is completely free to receive and download by an infinite number of lighthouses that are in the field. So this is, I think, a really powerful solution for education, schools, dispersed rural school networks. It's a powerful solution for disaster response, where you want to reach a bunch of disconnected locations simultaneously at a low cost. And so I think that there is a place within every category, whether it's education, whether it's health information, for that data to fit into all 3 categories. The information that we're selecting, the information that the public selects or that users select, and then the information that a particular health organization may want to send and use Outernet as a distribution path for. So, and finally, how does it look? It looks however you like. And I want to then quickly jump into showing you exactly what that means. So when you have Lighthouse, you go and you connect to its Wi-Fi signal here, which I've connected to. Open a browser. And I'm just typing in the IP address that has been assigned by this Wi-Fi router. And so you can see it looks just like a website. It looks and feels just like the web. This we left on for 24 hours before I came to the conference. It downloaded about 1,200 files. I just transferred all of them over. And you can scroll through. This seems like a fitting choice. And you can either keep it on here, or you can download it to your device and take it with you. You can also create apps for custom content. So we've just done Twitter as a demo because it's pretty simple and the messages are pretty small. But we have UNICEF's Twitter feed up here. So imagine with news, with weather information, with crop prices, with disaster updates. These are small messages that can be sent in real time. And it doesn't have to be through Twitter. This is just our example. So I'm going to log in now as an admin. I'm the teacher, I'm the principal. I'm somebody who owns this lighthouse and manages it on behalf of others. I can log in with the very secret password Outernet, which you can change. And now you see this new menu item here that has appeared called Updates. And that's where you see the new content come down from the satellite stream. So I didn't copy all of them over. I left a few here so I could show this. If you had left this on and you're receiving updates, you can go through and either add all of them at once and save them to the device, or go through one by one and say, okay, I want this, or this isn't in my language, so I don't need it. and save content in that way. Now, our filtering mechanism to make this process automated is getting more and more sophisticated. So you can set preferences and say, I want to auto-filter content that's in English that is tagged with education and is for Guatemala. And then it automatically does that. So let's just add these to the library. Oh wow, it was even more than I thought. 1,500 items. So in that 24-hour period, it just didn't happen to be that any of the Rachel content came down while it was plugged in. So I want to show you something else so that you can see this demo after this presentation. So I'm going to log back onto the actual internet and go to our website, outernet.is. I clicked on Experience Outernet at the top. Look familiar? It's a live web demo of the Outernet Lighthouse experience, that whenever we have a new software update, whenever we improve the UI or make changes, we reflect it on this website, which is exactly the same as what you would see if you were to go out into the field and plug a Lighthouse into a satellite dish and start receiving data. Now here, we have something from World Possible. It's their collection. So you see it maintains the exact same user interface that they've developed at Rachel that people are familiar with and know and understand and are already trained with to find the information that they want in a collection like Rachel. The thing about Outernet is that we can broadcast any digital file. We can broadcast a web page. We can broadcast a movie. We can broadcast this index that allows you to actually click on and look for material in a user interface that you've designed for your constituents or for your students, for your school, for your ministries. However you want to do it, we can maintain that. So I want to close with answering just telling you how, like, you leaving this conference, okay, this is great, Outernet's awesome, I've totally convinced you that this is the best thing to happen since sliced bread. And you go home and you're like, what can I do? How can I be involved? The first way is through deciding and bringing together information that you think you would like to contribute to the Outernet library. You can do that for, we're currently unveiling data plans right now to allow you to upload content. The public curation side is still being built out. It's going to be another few months before that's fully operational. It has to combine like the publicly editable aspects of Wikipedia with like the voting aspects of Reddit with the actual discrete file saving aspects of Dropbox. So there's a lot of things that we're kind of bringing together. But you can, right away, actually, you could go and upload your Twitter feed. If you want to see your Twitter feed on Outernet and sort of be a little mini editor of your own, you can do that for $3 a month, and your Twitter feed will be added to Outernet. And we host editathons. I hosted the first editathon from Kampala, Uganda, where over 200 people participated from around the world, and we asked people to create 50 megabyte bins or folders of content that they wanted to add to the library. So we'll be having more of those in the run-up to the ongoing publicly editable area of Outernet. And the second one is this. We created this area because we got a lot of feedback from people in the field who wanted us to just send them free lighthouses, which we would love to do, but then we wouldn't exist after months. We would just, that's not sustainable. So we created a crowdfunding platform where you could create a campaign of, hey, I want to build a library in my school or in my community. That's going to require 2 lighthouses. It's going to require a dish. It's going to cost shipping. There's customs. You can build a campaign and post it here, how much money you require, and go out to your constituents and say, can you help me fund this library installation? So we have one for a refugee camp in Jordan and Iraq. We have one by Mozilla. They want to install Outernet in 9 different schools over there. Creative Commons Nigeria is working on a campaign. So if you want to support these campaigns, that's one way to help. If you and your church or your community want to create a campaign, that's also a possibility. And all these campaigns fit into beat Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie built, through philanthropy at the beginning of the 20th century, 2,509 libraries across the world. It was one of the largest sustained acts of giving we've ever seen. It was over the course of about 40 years he built all these libraries. And we are now at a point where a library can cost $99 instead of the thousands of dollars that it would cost him to build a library. So we are challenging the world to help us beat him and build 2,510 libraries. So we would love to see you participating with your ministries when you go abroad and want to support a school or a church that you work with and give them a lighthouse and allow them to have information access, and then come home and then use it as an engagement tool within your congregation to say, all right, we've installed these lighthouses. What do we want to send to them? It's almost like a digital pen pal that you can just send data over to, and they can send you requests, and then you can follow up on those requests individually as well. So I hope that this was helpful in explaining aspects of Outernet. If anything's still unclear, which it probably is, please come up and talk to me and ask me questions. I'm happy to answer questions. If you're not able to talk to me here, my email address is thane@outernet.is. Please email me, and I look forward to hearing from you and beating Carnegie. Thank you.